Hey YouTube, I'm Mike in the middle, and this is Breaking Social Identity. Today we're going to be discussing the Eric Sheppard Challenge. We're going to get into why flag burning is wrong. We're also going to get into some of the misconceptions about Eric Sheppard as a person and what he actually did, especially entailing his dealings with Michelle Mann. And then lastly, we're going to go over some of the Supreme Court cases that rule and preside over the constitutionality of flag burning as a whole. Before we get into any of the details, let's discuss the story in case some of you are hearing about this for the first time. Eric Johnson is a student at the Valdosta State University in Georgia, and he sent a picture to his Instagram, Facebook, Twitter feed of him stomping on the U.S. flag, and also with him stomping on some Bibles. Now, this didn't gain any media attention or any traction. He's a very common black rights activist in his area, and so he's consistently posting things like this. But the reason it got media attention was Michelle Mann. Now, she's a former staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force and a 2007 Playboy model. We have her picture here. She's received some negative media attention for, desecrating the flag in the same way that she brought the media attention to this. Now, she was arrested at the university because she tried to take away the flag from the individuals, and she contacted the media before, making this a big media frenzy. Now, Eric Sheppard, presumably, we don't have any real evidence, but in a video he states that he was upset about 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, which is an individual that was found dead in wrapped up in a gym mat in his local high school. The police have done a 19-month investigation at the time of this video, and they found no evidence of any wrongdoing, no evidence of anything really. They're not releasing any information. But the family did their own autopsy report and found that their son had died from blunt force trauma. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into why flag burning is wrong. There's a lot of forms of protest. There's picketing, there's sit-downs, there's violent protest. But flag burning has always been seen to be the most raw, the most emotional form of non-violent protest. And it's not just because of the fact that so many veterans, look at the flag as a symbol of those who have died in combat. And it's not just because of what the flag itself represents, because let's be honest, the flag's representation is very vague. It's a symbol for America. And so when you desecrate this symbol for America that we've been conditioned to feel an emotional response about, such as sporting events, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, it's in front of every building. It's a very big, important symbol, but what does it really mean? And that's the thing, is that it means something different to everyone. Veterans look at it one way, whereas, regular citizens look at it another, and of course other activists look at it in a completely different light. And that's why desecrating the flag has always been so visceral, because it doesn't have a message. If you burn the Constitution, then we know that you're mad about the Constitution, or we know that you're mad about the Constitution having failed us in some way, or us having failed it. If we burn some form of documentation, there's words, there's meaning, there's a message there. But when you burn the flag, what you're really doing is you're just burning the symbol for America. And so there's an emotional response there. And how could there not be? It doesn't really have a clear and concise message. You could put it in form of anything for, it's very commonly been used when African Americans have been murdered, but it's also been famously used to protest Republicans, in Texas v. Johnson. We'll get into that a little later. But the reason it's so bad, the reason it's so wrong, is because you're not giving us a clear message. You're not protesting to give us something for change. You're protesting to create an emotional response. And you're doing it just to hurt people. It has no real purpose other than to get people to pay attention. Now, as we've discussed, burning the flag comes with a lot of emotional response from individuals. And so we've seen a very big overreaction from individuals, typically from the right, typically a little more patriotic in the traditional sense. And one of those such cases is The Blaze and The Washington Post, though I'm going to have a picture up right now of an article from The Blaze where it says numerous photos of other participants have been posted on Facebook. The Blaze reported Friday. Mr. Sheppard disappeared last week when a gun was found in his unattended backpack on campus. He self-identifies as a terrorist against white people, The Washington Post reported. Mr. Sheppard's father has pleaded with the student to turn himself in to police. Son, you know we love you and have always taught you to do right thing and make wise decisions. Please make the right decision and turn yourself in, either to the authorities or to me, and we will handle this together, Eric Sheppard Sr. said in a statement to a local paper. Now, they call him a white terrorist. Let's go ahead and see what he actually said.
The meaning for the stepping on the flag was that that flag represents white supremacy, racism, which is plaguing the entire earth, you see. So when we step on that flag, we're stepping on racism, white supremacy. We're stepping on those things that mean that we're erected alongside our genocide and our Holocaust. We're releasing those chains from our mental capacity and from our physical capacity.
That actually makes sense.
Right, and I'm glad you all came and asked because I'm sure the white media put it forth that I am a terrorist, and indeed I am. I'm a terrorist towards lies. I'm a terrorist towards liars. I'm a terrorist towards those who are wicked. So yes, I am a terrorist towards white people, you see.
As you can see, he is indeed a self-described white terrorist. He obviously means it in a context for some image that he's reporting. I'm not going to get into a psychological evaluation of the individual. I'm not going to say what he means when he says that, but one can clearly see that he's not trying to load car bombs into a van and blow up a government building. This description of that, putting into journalism, is it's something to pick out one thing from a video they found and try and vilify him even more to get an emotional response from people. And I understand that in media reporting, it's called yellow journalism. It's over sensationalism, and it's not what we need in our media. We need the story, and the story is that he's protesting in a very hateful way, and I don't really think it needs to be anything more than that. Another thing that I've seen a lot of pictures, a lot of memes, and a lot of people discussing how it's illegal to do this, how it's unconstitutional to burn or deface the flag. And although a lot of us feel very emotional about it, it is free speech. And we're going to get into some of those things. But first I'd like to bring up a quote from law.cornell.edu. And it's the same quote that a lot of people have been posting. It says, Congress passed the Flag Protection Act in 1989. The act criminalizes the conduct of anyone who, quote, and this is where the pictures I've seen most come from, knowingly mutilates, defaces, physically defiles, burns, maintains on the floor or ground, or tramples upon, end quote, a United States flag, except conduct related to the disposal of a, quote, worn or soiled flag, end quote. So, we're going to get into that case a little bit more. It's United States versus Ekman, and it's 1990 appellate court Supreme case that kind of reaffirmed Texas v. Johnson. And in here a second, we'll kind of go through all of these and kind of see how that has evolved. But I just wanted to show that quote beforehand before we get into the story of the history of flag burning in Supreme Court cases. So this isn't something new. Defaming the flag has been an emotionally divisive issue for a long time. But the Supreme Court and the appellate courts haven't been 100% consistent. And it has progressed more towards free speech as it goes on. But you can see a pretty clear pattern where they're very unlikely, and haven't before 1907, to say that it's necessarily wrong to do so. So without further ado, let's get into the first case, which is Halter v. Nebraska, 1907. This was brought because a corporation of some sort was using flags on their beer, which is, at the time was considered to be very wrong. And so they affirmed that the flag was a national protected thing. And so long as money wasn't made off of it, it was okay to display or to use as forms of advertising and things like that, as long as it wasn't with the intention of making money. Because before this, people were upset even if the flag showed up in a newspaper and they were simply trying to be patriotic. Later after that, in 1942, federal flag code comes out. Roosevelt comes out with it. And these are laws that aren't necessarily, they don't have a punishment, because it wasn't really even seen as a thing at this point to really defame the flag unless you were really crazy. There was a few instances of individuals using a red flag for a political party, and that was taken down, and those individuals were put under arrest. But it was very rare for anyone to do that. So these laws come out, and they are essentially a guideline of how to protect, how to display, and how to have some uniformity with the flags. Now, the first big instance of defamation and flag burning comes in 1968, Street versus New York. Now, Street is an activist, and he hears about James Meredith's shooting, who was a very big civil rights activist, and he burns an American flag. Now, when he burns the American flag, he's quoted saying, "If they let that happen to Meredith, we don't need an American flag. We don't need no damn flag." And it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court in this case doesn't rule that flag burning, one way or the other, is constitutional or unconstitutional, because he wasn't necessarily charged with anything against flag burning, and the majority opinion, didn't say anything about it. What they did, though, is they did say that he was allowed to say anything he wanted about the flag. He was charged with spitting at and defacing the flag verbally, because that was the only law in the books on New York, and they struck that down, saying that was unconstitutional and it was free speech. All right, next we come to Texas v. Johnson, 1989. This is the big one. This is the one that without a doubt proves that flag burning is indeed constitutional. 1984, Johnson attends, or should I say is on the outside of a Republican National Convention where Ronald Reagan was a speaker. And so he grabs a flag and a group of individuals and starts marching and chanting down the streets. And at the end, he burns the flag. He burns the American flag in Texas. Now, he's arrested and charged with desecration of a venerated object in Texas. Now, it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And this is when the Supreme Court says that flag burning is constituted as free speech, that it is just a symbol, and that we have the right under free speech to do that. Now, Congress was very upset. The Republican Party was incredibly upset. Directly after this comes out, they come out with the Flag Protection Act of 1989, which is obviously a direct violation of the Supreme Court, but the emotions were involved, and that's how the politics began. So in 1990, we have the United States versus Ekman case. Now, the quote that I showed you before was from the summary on law.cornell about this case, and it shows that quote is from that law, which is unconstitutional. But even more so, this doesn't go to the Supreme Court, this goes to the appellate court. And United States v. Ekman, the appellate court essentially said, no, this law is unconstitutional because we're reaffirming Texas v. Johnson. That is the law of the land. Flag burning is constitutional. So what does this mean as we try and come closer to the middle, as we try and come closer to the real crux of the situation? And for those of us on the right, we can't lie. We can't say it's illegal. We can't overreact. And we sure as heck can't do the same thing of, love it or leave it, America. You have to come to a point where we understand that this is wrong morally, in our opinion. But at the same time, we have to recognize that it's legal, it's constitutional, and maybe if individuals weren't having 2 years of investigations nearly for their death, and maybe if the media and people were reporting and paying attention to some of these horrendous police brutality and killings and some of the things that's going on in our poorer neighborhoods, that these types of protests wouldn't be occurring. Now, on the left, you have to recognize that although it is free speech to do so, you're not free from consequences. If you're going to make the decision to deface our flag and the symbol that so many veterans have, fought alongside their brothers for, and so many individuals have come back from war wrapped in nothing but a casket and that flag, you have to understand that comes with a punishment of its own. Just because it's legal doesn't mean that your face won't be on the internet. It doesn't mean that individuals won't post what you did everywhere. That's what you want, right? You want media attention, you want attention from individuals. You're also going to get attention from employers. You're going to get attention from people that you don't want to see this video. Because what you're doing when you deface our flag, by most accounts, is considered morally wrong. And so there's better forms of peaceful protest. You want to protest, something going on, don't destroy our flag. Be creative. Protests were about stopping the influx of the economy. They made an actual impact in the civil rights movement. Those sit-ins were extremely effective at getting the attention in a positive way. So if you're really truly passionate about some of these deaths in your area, go to your local Walmart with 100 people. Go and shop on let's say a Saturday afternoon, during around Christmas time with 100 people. Bring all your carts full to the front and then leave them there and walk outside with your protest signs and watch as their entire economy and area of all their Christmas shopping gets flooded with empty carts. With full carts of just things that they have to put away. You'll set them back and you'll hurt their pockets, because that's where real protesting is. It's in the money. It's not in defacing our flag. So please hit the subscribe button, help me out, and if you have any questions or comments, just post them down below.